Hi, this is Dr. Richard Downs with Sleep Balance Academy, and I have on the line with me Dr. Paul Bass. He is a longtime friend and mentor, and also one of the pillars of the Fortune Management Program. He's been teaching patient reactivation and recare programs for many years, and he's a master at it. I believe that dentists are really good at this, and it's one of the things, one of the reasons why Sean Dill and I and Matt Quinn, who I hope to put on here later today, will be able to help you with the reactivation and recare of your patients. We believe dentists are very good at this, and so Dr. Paul Bass has been teaching this for years. Paul, I want you to kind of go through the system that we use in Fortune Management in the reactivation program. So thank you for being online with me.
Be happy to. Before I do that, Dr. Downs, I'd like to make an acknowledgement. And I'm doing this, by the way, I'll tell all of you who are watching this video, I'm making this acknowledgement of Dr. Downs. He does not know that I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make a statement about him. As you guys mostly know, he's rocket science brilliant. I call him the professor. That's his nickname. I always call him to ask advice. Hey, professor, tell me what you think about such and such. But even bigger than that, as you guys follow his teachings, and I know he's doing a lot with you guys in the area of sleep apnea, putting you way beyond where the medical profession is in that particular arena. What I would tell you is that the most significant things that you learn from Rick Downs are not how to do the things he'll teach you to do. The most significant thing that you will ever learn from Rick Downs, pay attention, and you'll find that he will teach you how to be. He'll teach you how to be a leader, how to be creative, how to be an innovator, how to be a person who makes a difference. And he's someone I'm proud to call a friend and a good buddy. We've worked together for, oh my gosh, Rick, what, 30 years?
I think it's been longer than that.
Been longer than that, yeah.
I was there.
35.
I was there with you when we were in Hawaii with Tony Robbins, selecting the Fortune Management name with Tony. So
yes,
but I have the highest respect, and thank you for that compliment. I didn't know that was coming. Thank you.
Well, of course you didn't. I like surprises, so that's a great way to kick this off. You mentioned Tony. You know, how do I not go there? I wasn't going to say anything about Tony, but most of you on the call, if you've been around Rick Downs for a while, you know that our company, Fortune Management, is a company that Tony Robbins is a co-founder. I myself am a co-founder. Tony is a co-founder as well. And, you know, our mission is to make a difference in medicine, not by changing patient perceptions as much as changing the way doctors think and how they approach building a team, how they approach, you know, making a difference with their patients in the area of treatment, always providing the best of care, providing for every single patient the experience from the new patient, from the first phone call for that matter, the spirit of hospitality. So when a patient calls into your office, phone is answered, or if they walk in, the patient is greeted in a way that they have never, ever, ever been greeted in a healthcare practice, ever. And so there's an immediate, first impression. You only get one chance for first impression, right? And unfortunately, you know, most healthcare practitioners haven't thought their way through this. But Tony has made a huge difference in our company. He's given us many, many tools, some of which, you know, that's not really what today's about, but it can't help but come out in our vernacular because that's who we are. You know, we have learned from him for many, many years and still do. So, Dr. Downs, where would you like to go from here, buddy? You want to just dive into this?
Well, let's go into I know that it's a little bit of difference between reactivation and recare programs. Which one would you like to start with first?
Well, I think it's one and the same, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So here's what I would just like to lead off with. I believe that in all arenas of healthcare, there's this is a new moniker I just coined just like a few weeks ago, the old worn out path. It's the old worn out path of how a potentially really dynamic preventive program or recare program is sabotaged right up front. I'm gonna give you two examples. Let's say, for example, I just got out of school. I'm a brand new chiropractor, just got my license, just hung out my shingle. And on day one, I get a new patient. I do a new patient comprehensive evaluation, and I find some things need to be done. Maybe there's a treatment plan of multiple visits, but somewhere, either at that initial visit or as I'm finishing the phase of treatment I'm taking that patient through, there should always be an appointment made for preventive care. Now, every profession has a different belief about what's the frequency of preventive care. If you're an OBGYN or general practitioner of medicine, guess what? Most people believe that it's appropriate to have an annual physical. So if I'm a physician and I'm doing an annual physical, knowing what I know, I would make certain that my front desk team gets that patient scheduled for next year before they ever walk out of the office. That way, if the appointment gets altered or changed in some way, we can always, no problem. They can't come Thursday that week. We can bring them in Thursday if that's their, favorite day of, the following week. But we don't lose track of that patient. Go back to, oh, by the way, that's physicians, okay? Physicians would be an annual recare, right? Rick, if it were dentistry, you remember the old Pepsodent ads, brush your teeth twice a day and see your dentist twice a year. You remember that? That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So in dentistry, it's typically every 6 months. The patient has, periodontal disease, maybe it's every 3 months. But the point is there's an expectation about when they would next be seen. So if I'm that brand new practitioner and my very first patient ends up scheduling a root care appointment because they want to stay preventively cared for, you and I both believe in preventive care, Rick. As a chiropractic patient, I can tell you that I have always, well, not I won't say always, for at least the last 10 years. On December 1st, I'm going in there for my December chiropractic appointment. And what do you think I did? I'm a pretty proactive guy, Rick. Would it surprise you if I said that while I'm there, I scheduled the next 12 for the next January for December the following year?
Yes, it would.
That would surprise you?
No, it would not surprise.
It would not. Yeah,
No.
of course not. Because I'm preventive minded. We all should be preventive minded. And we can train and teach our patients to be preventive minded. So just for the record, guys, I'm a very devout patient of chiropractic, and so is my wife. Have been for a long time. Now, there are many OBGYN practices that do not pre-appoint for the next exam, right, Rick?
That's right.
There are many dental practices that do not either. We just wait on the phone to ring, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, there are many chiropractic practices that do not schedule the next month appointment, because by and large, such an opinion I hear from the chiropractic profession is that once a month is the ideal point in time to preventively check up with the patient and make sure they're staying healthy. So let's go back to I'm that brand new chiropractor. I got one patient today. Okay, maybe they did schedule, maybe they didn't. Let's say that over the next month, I actually see 25 new patients in my practice. If you're a chiropractor watching this, you might remember back in the days when you started, you would ask yourself, okay, how many of the 25 did I already realize need to be scheduled for the following month? If there's no awareness of the importance of preventive care ongoingly and supporting our patient, we've got to take the role in supporting them to be present, right? Then we've missed an opportunity. I would suggest, Dr. Downs, that most chiropractic offices that open brand new probably schedule the patient. And if we were to come back about 3 or 4 months later, what percentage do you think of those patients would still have a preventive visit?
I don't know. And that would be because I don't know the chiropractic profession statistics that well.
Well, I'm just saying hypothetically, right? I mean, if I got 100 new patients in the first 3 months, well, if I were to go like 3 months later and look back, I would bet you my car that number is less than 100. And slowly but surely it deteriorates.
Yeah.
That's a brand new practitioner. Now, let's say that I bought a practice, an existing practice from a chiropractor who'd been practicing for 30 years. And you think, well, all these people are in a preventive program. What we know, guys, is that in dentistry, and we've probably worked harder in our profession than any other profession because we were aware of the need earlier. And even in dentistry to this day, 30 to 40% is the range of which the range of which patients stay preventively cared for. With all the efforts we've done in dentistry to keep people educated about ongoing care, it's pretty appalling. So the real point of this is if we believe in taking care of our patients, then what we should do is believe in creating a preventive recare, whatever you'd like to call it, program that the entire team is involved in. They see the need. It's not done just to fill your book. That's a point that I want to make here right up front. Go ahead, Rick.
So, Paul, what's the percentages of those reactivation and recare patients in fortune management practices that you coach?
That I coach?
Yeah.
I can tell you, and the listeners probably may not really appreciate this figure until we go into how the figure is created. But I will tell you, my average client has what I call an effectiveness rate of 85%.
Yeah.
In other words, if they have 10,000 patients, they have 8,500 of the patients who are consistently coming in on a recare basis. That is very abnormal. How did they get there? I'll be talking more about this, but this whole process of reactivating people who fell off the wagon, it's almost like you think, okay, well, we're taking our patients down the road, and one day you wake up and you realize, oh, 3 people just rolled off the wagon over there. Well, we got to get those people back up on the wagon and also take care of the ones that came in today. It's our role as providers to be the leaders. Again, be a leader in leading your patients in the direction that's supportive of their health.
Right. So in my practice, we just hired another hygienist. As these people continue to reactivate and re-enroll in their recare program, pretty soon you have to have more staff in the hygiene department to take care of them, and something comparable to that in chiropractic. And I have that system now in place with telemedicine for chiropractors, and we'll talk about that later with Matt Quinn and InHand Health. But continue. Thank you.
That sounds great. With this old worn out path, it's time that we be smart enough and creative enough. And we, by the way, have done that homework for you guys so that you're going to know exactly what to do. And I want to say one more time, Rick, as we're getting into how this works, it's very important to make the point that for you and your team, guys, this is not about making more money. It's not about bringing more people back in for preventive care, because then, there's a fee for that. And then they may have some other additional work they need to do at that time. It's not about the money. And the truth of the matter is, it will absolutely have the numbers explode in your practice. What it's about is taking care of your patients, serving patients in such a way that you stand out. You totally stand out from anything that you might have called competition in the past. Because patients understand it, they're excited about it, but it's all done to take care of them. It's not done to make more money, but the money sure shows up. So, would you like to move into how we calculate our percentages?
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's say, for example, that a chiropractor has 1,000 patients. I'm talking active patients. I want to first of all give you the definition of an active patient. I would consider an active patient to be anyone who has been in your office for any type of chiropractic care whatsoever in the past 2 years. If they've been in the past 2 years, I think we have every reason to believe that they probably still consider you to be their chiropractor. Fair enough?
Yes.
So, right. So let's say in the last 2 years, you have had, you go back and you count, this is your first step. You have one of your admin people who pays very close attention to detail, does things accurately, or you can do it yourself. Find out how many active patients you have. That's how many human beings, how many different human beings have been into your office as a patient between, today, what is this, the 14th of October?
Yes.
All the way back to the 14th of October last year. That's a pretty simple calculation. You can pull those things up on your computer. You could wait till the end of October if you want to, and then go from the end of October to the end of October last 2 years ago. So we want to find out how many people have been in as a patient, not how many appointments they've had. How many individuals have been in as a patient even one time in the last 2 years and still consider them to be active. Next thing that we have to do is take a look at your numbers of patients coming through on a regular basis for the recare or preventive appointment. So if you have that thousand patient load that we talked about earlier, 1,000 active patients, don't be surprised when you take a very close look at the last month, maybe at the end of October, take 10 months. And how many total preventive patients came into your office in 10 months divided by 10, that is your average per month, right?
Yeah.
And since you guys are based on a monthly basis for recare, that would be it. If you have 1,000 patients who are active in your practice and only 200 of them have been in for preventive care average per month, then guess what? We're 80% behind the curve already. Rick, anything that you want to go further into about that piece?
Yeah, I think that in dentistry, we have 6-month recall patients, we have
Right.
3-month recall patients. Sometimes we even have 2-month recall patients that are preventive. And so you could have an effectiveness rate for each category. Is that correct?
But in the beginning, and this is really a beginning level conversation for most of the people who are listening today, Rick, I would say keep it simple up front. And those distinctions you're referring to, they can get more sophisticated and even more sophisticated over time.
Right.
And I think we just need to start with something that's truly simple. How many active patients do you have? And how many are you averaging coming in per month? Because your cycle is 1 month.
Right.
Our cycle in dentistry is 6 months. Medicine is 12 months.
Right.
So it would all start right there. Once, as a matter of fact, think about it. If you discover, in fact, for the first time that, yes, I do have an issue, only 20% of my patients, or 30, I mean, even if it's 40% of your patients are consistently coming in for your preventive care, what does that create as far as an opportunity through reactivation? You have 40% coming in. That means 60% of your active patients are not even in the system. And in any profession, what I would suggest, and if there's an exception on the phone, I'd love for you to call me or on this video. I'd love for you to call me and tell me my cell number is 931-588-1828. You may be the person who's going out teaching this stuff yourself if you're up in the upper stratosphere. Rick asked me a few minutes ago, what's the average for my clients? The average for people I've worked with for many, many years, it takes a while to get to this point, but the average is 85%. Rick, I did not tell you the world's record in my record keeping. Would you like to know what that is?
Yes, I would.
I have had two clients who reached 98% effective.
Wow.
If I'm doing a public seminar anywhere in the US or Canada, guess what? I hesitate to even say that, because what do you think most doctors would think if I said, 98% effectiveness is doable?
You're a liar.
A liar. There's no way. Well,
Yeah.
Here's one of the things Omar Reed once said, Rick, you'll remember, is if it's been done before, it's probably possible.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to first of all find out where you are, and if you're in a place you don't want to be, do something to change it. So, any question about that piece so far, Rick?
No.
Okay. So we need to find out where we are, and then what I would suggest we do is move into a conversation about having a dynamic team game put in place for your entire team to jointly work on in a disciplined manner. reactivating every single patient who is active in the last 2 years that is not currently in the system. And the system that I would suggest you use is to put one person accountable for that particular process. You could call that person the team leader. You could call them the accountability person. You could call them the source person. But at the end of the day, that's the person who like leads the charge on this. And there are some steps for that person to follow. Now, before she gets too deep into this, I think the thing that we need to remind people is that there's a great opportunity when this type of explosive growth can be created. There's a great opportunity, the staff, an incentivization, a bonus incentive to really jump in and be committed to getting your patients well taken as if they were family members, their own personal family members. I mean, I think we owe that to them. I'm sure that you would all agree. So I think a bonus opportunity calculated properly, Dr. Downs, would be very smart. And personally that the way we've always calculated that there could be bonuses paid out every month to the team because they're creating this substantial growth. But yet those fit very nicely into the profit and loss statement. So the doctor is not losing money. The doctor is in fact still able to accelerate the financial wellness practice as we pay people to go the extra mile. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this person you can refer to here as the team leader. You would ask for a volunteer. Who here, once they understand the power of what we're talking about, who would be the best person here? Ask them, guys. Don't appoint one. Just ask all of you, who would be the best person to be the team lead on this? Just raise your hand. And I guarantee you 90% of the time, her hand will shoot straight up. That's your person to lead this process. Now, her role as the team leader of this reactivation process would be to follow a few steps that I believe are really important. Step number one is to evaluate the need. In other words, take a step back, have her have the opportunity to check the figures that you already came up with. If she gets the same figure that you get, right? So evaluate the need. If we're at 20%, Rick, the need's pretty obvious. We need to reactivate 80% of our active patient base. We will never finish this work, guys. I can tell you, by the time you get to a point that you've gotten like all those people thrown back up in the wagon, more of them are falling off the other side. It never ends. I hesitate to even say if you ever got to a 100% effectiveness rate, you could always then go back beyond the 2 years because there are people back there who fell off the wagon. But in my experience of this, I can tell you I have hundreds of thousands, literally, results sent in from offices all over the U.S. and Canada over the last 37 years. And I can tell you for sure that the job does not totally get done because there are more people falling off the wagon that are also in your active patient base. You just keep doing what you're doing. And as I said earlier, I think I said this, Rick, it's like Chinese water, right? Mm-hmm. If I didn't say that, I need to. It's like, what do we do as a team? Drip, 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 drip. We constantly reactivate every day, every person, every week. And guess where the numbers go? Numbers always go to. So the first step for the team leader here is to evaluate the need. Once he sees what the need is, then our next step would be to create a game plan for how we're going to accomplish that. How specifically can we accomplish that? And that would mean breaking it down to, excuse me, numbers of, again, numbers of reactivations done per staff member per week. So numbers per week. It could be 1 per week, 2 per week. It doesn't have to be anything, just way over the top. It's an additional thing we do with and for. I'm having a little issue here. I'm going to mute myself. So step number one for this team leader is to evaluate the need, find out where we are, can't get out of the jungle till you first of all find out where in the heck are we, you know? So step number 2, to create a game plan that is reasonable and it's something that your team is committed to because they're all about taking care of people. That's our job here, guys, is to serve people. At the end of the day, that's all there is. That's what we're here for. So we then would create she would actually, or he would create a specific game plan for the numbers of people that we would each be asked to reactivate on a weekly basis. Now, as a true leader, this person would first, step 3 is to declare how many she's willing to commit to. You may say, notice a new system, guys. I personally can assure you, I, as the leader of this activity, am going to reactivate one patient out of our active patient base into the preventive category, one patient per week consistently. That's her declaration. And by declaring that, she just earned the right to ask everyone else to participate. She would simply then make a request. Everyone should jump on board with that. Now, I understand that some people have responsibilities that are huge, but being a team player is probably your number one responsibility. And quite frankly, it doesn't take long to do a successful phone call. I mean, how long does it take, you know, Rick, in your practice when your ladies reactivate? What's the time spent to get that done?
They're not spending a lot of time on that. It easily fits within their schedule very, very well. Yes.
Yeah, extremely well. And what I would tell you is that 50, when you follow the protocol that I'm going to give you here shortly, and teams follow that religiously, what they find is that 50% of the patients they talk to schedule. And when I get to that part, you'll understand why. Because we're in the people business. So we do this in a way that really resonates with people. So step number 3 for that team leader is to declare and request. And now we've started the activity. Rick, when you start any activity, any new thing in your practice, what do you think is smart for us to do along the way so we can see how we're doing?
We've got to monitor it.
Bingo. So she would monitor results. The team leader should expect every single member of that team submits to her in writing a specific result at the end of the week so that she can keep track of how we overall as a team are doing. We monitor results.
And we celebrate it.
I'm sorry?
And we celebrate it.
And you celebrate it, absolutely. The team gets, and part of that celebration, by the way, is how about that incentive bonus we talked about earlier? I'm not saying we do it for money, but for Pete's sake, a little money. In this day and time, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
People will, you know, maybe be seeing this recording, you know, 2 or 3 years from now, and hopefully the economy is better off than it is right now. But most people are having trouble deciding I'm going to put food on the table or am I going to put, you know, gas in the car. I could always walk to work, I guess. It's 3 miles, but I could always, you know, choose to get up earlier and do that. That's no fun.
Well, one of the nice things about this is it's free. I mean, you're already paying the staff members. You're not going outside and marketing. You're not spending advertising dollars. It's easier to reactivate a patient that you already have seen than it is to get a new patient. Thank you.
Far easier to do that. And then the final step number 5 for this team leader is to coach results. What that basically means is hold in a loving, elegant way, hold people accountable to do what they told you they would do. When you made your declaration, I mean, first of all, you got to make sure you do what you said you were going to do, because otherwise you've lost your power, you know, in front of the whole group, right? But since you're following through and doing that, you should be able to count on these people to do whatever it takes. Write those words down, whatever it takes to get one person reactivated per week. And that's not a tall order. I've always told people, you know, if I were sitting in your shoes, I want to make sure I got mine done by Tuesday morning. I don't want my whole week to be about trying to figure out how I'm going to get a reactivation. It's easy to do, especially when you follow the steps I give you soon. And so when the team is all synced up in this activity and they're seeing the results, they see in the rewards, they see that their patients realize, you know, yes, thank you for I've been off track for 6 months. I've a lot going on in my life. Thank you for calling me to get me back in, because I totally value chiropractic care, always have. Well, guess what? Warms your heart. To get bonus for that simultaneously and the office numbers go up, I think that's a good trifecta. Don't you think, Rick?
Very good. Very good.
Okay. Any thoughts about that we should go further into as far as the team activity and how the leader sets it up and holds people accountable to do what they said they would do when she requested it?
No, I don't have anything else on that right now.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, then one might say, okay, so what do we do when you make this call? Well, actually, the whole process starts before you make the call. One thing that you should already be doing in your practice is writing down personal information in your patient's record. This patient comes in, let's say it's a new patient coming in today. You find out that this new patient is a huge Tennessee football fan. Oh my gosh, what happened? Didn't you guys just beat LSU like a drum last week? By the way, all you Cajuns on the phone, bear with me, man. When you guys came to Knoxville last time, you wore us out, which I didn't enjoy at all. And I had a bunch of my Cajun buddies up there for that game, so that was not a pleasant experience. But the whole point is find out relevant personal information that we can always put in the chart. If you haven't done that up to this point, that's fine. We need to start doing that now because I'm still going to tell you how to get this done with your patient. You just start dialing for, we're not dialing for dollars, guys. So number one, let's start gathering information, not just chiropractic information, but personal information. Is this person new to town? Where did they come from? What brought them here? You know, what activities are they most interested in the town? Are they animal lovers? Is this a person who volunteered always over at the animal shelter, take care of animals? Obviously, volunteer means, without compensation. Or is this person a den mother in a scout troop? Or is this guy an assistant football coach at the high school? Learn about your patients so then when you call them, you're able to have a personal conversation with them. And if, for example, you have never done this, what would I say? You identify, let's say you have 8 people on your team, and your team leader identifies the 8 people that we are going to reach out to first because they definitely should be low-hanging fruit. They're people who've always been committed to preventive care. So those would be the first 8 that we call. Well, if we haven't had any information in the chart, then we probably would be very wise to stop and think about what do we collectively as a team know about this person? Oh, she's a volunteer over at the animal shelter. Oh, he's a high school football coach. Well, guess what? Or his son, by the way, is an amazing place kicker. He's currently rated #1 in the state of Tennessee. Well, if you were going to call this guy, Rick, for a reactivation phone call, what do you think you might open with just to build rapport?
Hey, how's your son doing in the football game?
Yeah, I've been reading some amazing things in the paper. I mean, think it, guys, put yourself in this position. You are the proud dad whose son is the #1 recruit. And we, by the way, this #1 recruit, we have that person right here in Oklahoma, Tennessee.
Okay.
He's a junior. First game of the year, he kicked 3 field goals that ranged from 43 to 46 yards. That's D1 college stuff, right? So if I were a staff member calling this person's mom or dad, how would I lead off the conversation? I mean, I would start with, "Hey, Ruth, this is Sally calling from Dr. Down's office. Let me just start by saying you guys have got to be over the top excited about the future that Grant has. He's an amazing young man. I mean, how you guys feel about that?" So how much rapport are you getting right now by just talking about their son? You're connected.
And that's an important point. And establishing rapport is the first thing on your list to do.
Yes, ma'am. It is. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It is the first and close. That's the very first thing to do. So it's you already have great personal information in the record about that patient. That's fabulous. If not, we just need to brainstorm for a few minutes and think about what about this person virtually? So when we're reviewing the chart, that is the first step before we jump on the phone and start attempting to get patients reactivated. Review the chart not only for chiropractic information, but more importantly, and first off, for personal information about that patient's life, because that's how we reestablish. So step one is to review the chart prior to making the call. Step number two is call, introduce yourself, and recreate rapport. And how are you going to do that? Simply the way we just illustrated. And how long does it take, Rick, when someone calls you about something, you have one of your kids has done something amazing. How long would it take to create that rapport?
It's 30 seconds.
It's 30 seconds.
Right.
And the bottom line is, maybe someone's a volunteer at the animal shelter. They're not as jazzed maybe about, how their son's doing, but guess what? It's their calling to take care of animals. We all love our animals, right? So it's just learn who this person is that you're about to call. And again, as an entire team, we need to always be gathering personal information. So you're going to call, introduce yourself, and recreate rapport. Step number three, state the purpose of the call. If you've talked about, personal things for 2 or 3 minutes, I mean, I have no issue with that. That's not a waste of time. That's a rapport build. We've talked with personal things with this patient for the first 2 or 3 minutes, then we easily migrate into, Mrs. Jones, let me tell you actually the reason I was calling today. We were looking over your chart and realized that even though we have always had you on a regular monthly recare program, it's actually been about 4 months now since you've been in. When we realized that, we were all concerned, and Dr. Downs asked us to give you a call and get you scheduled back in here so we can keep you chiropractically healthy. That's the number one thing. And I'm going to immediately, Rick, mid-sentence move into step 4, which is schedule the appointment. And incidentally, in reviewing the chart, you've also found out that this patient wants to be in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Guess who that is, Rick? That's me.
Yeah.
I want 8 o'clock appointments. That's why I do them in advance. Boom, boom, boom. I have 12 of them. So, if you know that that's a priority of this patient you're reactivating, what you could also say is, and incidentally, I've already looked at, not this week, well, I've looked at this week, but I have 2 opportunities next week that are 8 o'clock first thing, because I know that you always value getting in and so that you can still get on to work in a timely manner. Done deal. What have you done? You've reestablished rapport. You've stated the purpose of the call. You've given them some information about how far out of the system they have been. And then there's a call to action schedule. And we are Johnny on the spot, who was already located 2 8 o'clock slots for next week. Make sense?
Yes.
What if you were a chiropractor on this phone today? What question do you think you might have for me at this point about that problem?
Well, I think the monitoring issue would be something that I would like to know more about. What kind of monitors do you use?
Well, in fortune management, we use a reactivation monitor.
Mhm.
But the truth of the matter is, this team member could just say, I'm going to create a monitor that has each of our names on it and what our commitment is. And we're beginning with 1 per week. They'll become so effective at this if they follow this format that I just gave you, that they'll find that half of them schedule.
There
And
are
then
also there are also issues about not issues, but I don't know much about chiropractic software. I know with my dental software, we can easily go in and get unique names that have been in the last 18 months to 24
right.
months. But in some cases, you might have to go back and manually count from your schedule those people so you can find out your effectiveness rate.
Well, that's a point we'll take it. I believe that most people electronically should be able to pull this up, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that there could be some exceptions. So guess what? You just do it manually.
And
You
do you have some figures on what this means financially to the practice as far as dentistry is concerned? What kind of
I can tell you
monetary
with guys
benefit.
without any question whatsoever, and I don't believe it makes any difference which healthcare platform
Yeah,
we're in.
right.
The revenue that is driven to the practice because of reactivation of your patients is far more. Now, please write this down. Far more profound than the number of dollars that are already being generated in the practice. Again, I said it's not about money, it's about taking care of people, but stop and think about it. The only way we have an ability to look at our numbers and take care of and know how well we're taking care of people is if those numbers are going up, we're doing a pretty good job typically. Of course, you have your, proprioceptive nerve fibers constantly. You're noticing we're taking great care of people. The numbers will go up. There is profoundly more revenue available from a reactivated patient base than there is from a dynamic new patient flow. And I'm not saying don't get new patients. New patients are the lifeblood of your practice. As far as growth is concerned, recare is multiples beyond new patient.
Right. That's pretty much as far as the questions I have for you, Paul, on that particular segment of yours.
Well, I know you're going to be doing a section of this also. If I can think of anything else that
All right. Well, let me just add to this. I'm going to ask some questions because this is what Fortune teaches us to do. Right. So, what if you could see more patients and free up chair time and see patients via telemedicine rather than in your chair? What if you could take better care of your patients through a remote monitoring system as an app on their phone, as opposed to people having to come into your office, in addition to their regular office visits? What if you could do a lot of your treatment via telemedicine or remote applications on a phone? These are the things that we're going to talk about with InHand Health, and how to reactivate patients through an app on their phone that they already have. Imagine the possibilities that could be taking place. And what if, through remote patient monitoring, you could delegate a lot of this care to an office staff member, freeing up doctor time and patient time and room treatment time that you didn't have before for the more extensive and longer procedures that you need to complete? Think about those things, and then imagine what you can do with this recare program, reactivation program, with these additional tools in your hand. These are the things we're going to talk about with Matt Quinn and InHand Health in our next segment on patient reactivation and recare programs.
It's fantastic. May I make a comment?
Yes.
I have had many clients who have hired companies who profess to be able to, do reactivation for them, so they don't have to take staff time to do it. Just pay another company to do this. In fact, a gentleman up in Dayton, Ohio, who you and I both know rather well, I'll probably tell you who I'm talking about. I'm going to protect the innocent here.
Yeah, I know who you are.
Yeah. I will tell you this. I've had many, and when any of my doctors have ever said, I think it would be interesting for me to find out what would happen with using XYZ company to do reactivation, and we just pay them for it, and we're able to do other things, right? And I can tell you unequivocally, there has never been a company that came anywhere close to matching the results that staff was getting.
Right.
Okay, and think about it. They have no rapport with the patient.
No.
How are they going to be more effective than us in reactivation, because they don't have rapport with the patient to begin with?
Yeah, and to be clear, that's not what I was talking about here, though. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about we're talking about staff handling this, and doctors and the staff being in contact with patients through these apps. So thank you. That's a very good point, Paul. I totally agree with you. You cannot do that within a remote patient activation system, a third-party company. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you getting on the phone with me, and I'm going to have next on the line, we're going to talk to Mr. Matt Quinn with InHand Health and give you some more information on this important subject. And then later on, Sean Dill will be coming in and speaking to you all about the same system and the insights that he has about this process. By the way, Sean Dill and Paul Bass have met about a year ago, and they're actively working to integrate their systems with each other and complement each other's knowledge base in patient care. So thank you both.
Thank you, Dr. Downs. It's been a real pleasure. And anything I can ever do for you guys, let me know.
Have a great day, Paul. Thank you.
You too, buddy. Take care.